feds also taxed as well.
Yes. Clear that up.
Yes, sir.
What do y'all think of the changes? Do you want to make those changes?
Make the motion that we approve the tax abatement guideline changes. Then we know.
Second.
All in favor? All right, let's talk about the fourth quarter treasurer's report.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mel.
Okay, we ended the fourth quarter of 2019 with a cash balance of all of our accounts totaling $15,459,046.47. In that total, you've got your taxes that were paid in advance for this year's budget. So that's one reason why that is so large. Total interest earned for the fourth quarter was $72,363.95, with a net gain of $10,462.91 from the third quarter. Our year-to-date interest earned was $316,343.91, which was an increase by $100,162.44. We had a gain, and I know the third quarter we lost some in interest. The feds have, in 2019, they lowered the interest rate 3 times. So we kind of like, in 2018, we took 3 steps forward, and 2019, we took 2 steps back. So our interest rates have gone down. We'll see how that affects us in the future, and maybe they will go up this year. Our interest rates on investments, let's see, Texas Class, we're earning at 1.88%. Our FICA account is earning at 1.53%. Tax pool is at 1.622%. And we compare it to the average 3-month T-bill, which is earning at a rate of 1.522%. So it's pretty close to the T-bill rate, a little bit higher, but anyway, if there's any questions, I'll try to answer it. If not, I submit for your approval.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nelda.
I make a motion that we approve the fourth quarter treasury report as presented.
Sure.
All in favor? All right. All right, let's talk about the revisions to the bad weather policy. The issue came up with the bad weather policy last Friday, the Friday of, is it last Friday? The Friday of the snowstorm? We had the storm on Wednesday, Tuesday night, Wednesday, and then by Friday, most of it was pretty much gone. However, we follow the school district, as you can see in our policy here, and there's really no deviation from that. So the school on Friday said that they were not going to go, they were not going to have school because it was a late, they did not want a late start because they get out early on Fridays. That kind of puts us in an awkward situation. If we follow the schools, we could have had a late start and had a day of work on that Friday. I know not everybody's going to like this, but, especially those that work with us. So, but no, we, I got to asking around about what other counties do. Pretty much same situation, follow the schools. But I'd like to see if we can add something maybe. I don't want to get rid of that. I think it's a good idea to follow what they do. But there are going to be rare exceptions like that Friday where we can work, but they can't necessarily go to school. So any suggestions on how I saw one county judge sent something to me. It says the decision he sent out a memorandum to all the department heads and elected officials. And one thing he said, the decision as to whether or not to close an office during normal office hours ultimately rests with the elected officials in charge of that office. And I agree with that assessment. So, should we add anything? Should we leave it like it is? What are your thoughts on this?
I think that, I mean, you can leave it with the school like this, but I also think we need the option of Scurry County standing on its own, making its own decisions when it comes to bad weather.
Right. And other elected and department heads, I want some input there too. Yes, ma'am.
I've got an input or a clarification maybe y'all can make.
Okay.
In the past, I had a lady that worked for me that lived in Harley.
Mhm.
Well, we know sometimes Harley, Ira,
Sure.
and Snyder school districts are different. Are we solely going by Snyder or all the school districts?
It says follow the Snyder Independent School District.
Okay, that's the way I interpreted
Right.
that, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wanted
'cause-
to see if there was clarification
Right.
on that.
I knew Hermley and Ira both went to school that day. I don't know if they had a late start, but I know they both had.
Harley was a
class.
late start.
Hermley was late.
No, I don't think Ira was. Ira had a late start the day before,
Okay.
I think.
The other thing you have to keep in mind is like during the holidays, when school's out for 2 to 3 weeks in Christmas time,
We're
you
not.
can't go by what the school does
Right.
because they're already closed.
Yeah.
And then now Snyder ISD, they believe they end classes on Fridays at 12:30
At 1.
1:45.
or 1.
Something like that.
So,
I
I mean, it didn't make sense for them to have a late start because they would
Exactly.
only be there 2 hours.
Well, and
Or
two, they had, which I didn't
they had the
realize,
flu.
they had the flu.
Right.
And they were trying to
Mhm.
take that in consideration too.
Well, when they discussed that, when they sent that out about Friday, when they sent the one out for Wednesday, Thursday, they discussed the flu in that one, but they didn't discuss the flu in Friday. But I'm sure that was part of the consideration
could
as
be.
well, so. But I just think there are times when we're gonna have to make the decision on our own. So,
Yeah.
and I know you guys are out, I mean, you're like the post
I don't
office.
have a dog in the fight. I have to be at work.
Judge, I'm always a stick in the mud. But I don't mind saying what I want to say.
That's right.
I've heard more gripes about the days.
Mhm.
First of all, and I know I'm gonna go ahead and throw it. You're, I mean, hell, you can take a vacation on the days off you got. And then you hear a lot of gripe about that, or I do. I don't want to say you, but I do. Now, I'm for everybody having time with their kids, but some jobs just don't work like that. And, you know, whether we like it or not, we're not here to just appease the people out here, but we've heard the last 2 or 3 months we're here to work for the folks. And I don't know of a lazy person, unless it be myself, in this building. But, you know, you can push the deal till you pushed it a little bit too far. You know, it's, like it or not. I mean, this is a good job. This is a good job. It pays good benefits. Another guy. I mean, they got a lot of complaints. I understand part of them, some part of them, I just can't get my ear around them. But, everybody's got a right to believe their side. But I think we've pushed the envelope back as far as we need to push it for a while. I think we need to back off and either give a little bit some way, or else just bring our earplugs not listen. Well, I'm not gonna do that, but I'm deaf anyway. So, you know, that's just my opinion. Don't amount to nothing much, but that's it. And I think, let me throw this in right in case I didn't get this in, I may have already said it once, if I did, I'm sorry. I think we ought to, go back to the deal that, now, I know, here it comes again, throw that rock. I know you run your own offices, but I sat here for 8 months listening and reading Fisher County's deal over the same thing. You run the office, you run the office, you run, I can open it when I want to. Well, that's all right till you get somebody coming up here wanting to see 2 people. Well, this one wasn't here because she decided to close his, he decided to close his, or whatever. I think we're gonna have a regular deal, and pretty much I think we've got it. But it ought to be that it's, certain time, and if one closes, I know I went home one time, everybody, I was left, I guess I went to sleep in there, I don't know, I was left. I went out the door, but I wasn't left by myself, nobody had called these ladies over here at the library and tell them that that this was shutting down. So that's what you get when I do my thing, and I do my thing, you do your thing. We're gonna have one in charge of the darn thing, and blow the whistle when it's time to go, let everybody know. And then I guarantee you, I think, like I say, we've got, dang, I could take a vacation on all this stuff. You know, it's something, and I think I'm probably here just about as much as anybody. I don't mind, cause I run, that's what I'd be here. And, now then, I try to get out of when I get there and look at the ruts he is talking about, not his ruts, my ruts. So, but anyway, that's just my thought. It ought to be a little bit more us than them. And I ain't got no more babies, thank God. That's one thing that I know some of you's got, and, but you just have to be in the round, I think.
Judge, I think that we should just allow you to email, as you always do, everybody at one time. And let them know that, hey, I know the school's out today, but I'm gonna be in my office, and anybody else that elected officials that wants to open their office, they open it. I think that, you know, anybody's gonna do that, that's an elected official, appointed official, doesn't matter. If you feel like it's okay for you to come, believe you're gonna do it. And everybody else is going to, that's what we've always done.
You're gonna,
Next time they get time to get ready to get elected, I guess then those people can
that's a
decide they
good way
don't
to
need.
look at it, not give a shit.
I mean, that's what they'll do, but it's, an elected official is in charge of their office, and there's nothing we can do about that.
Nobody is saying that. It ought to be where people that's coming into this place knows that if they gotta go over here see Melody, and then if they gotta go down there to pay Miss Carvin their water bill, that both places will be open. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not saying anything different.
Yeah, you are. You said, well, one can do it, one can don't have to.
I said it is definitely in the end of all.
Ain't nobody arguing about that. Let's have some common horse sense.
Okay, whatever.
Okay, I have also, if that is the case that y'all do, you go that way where you make that decision. I would like to suggest collaborating with the district judge, because the district office is on the 4th floor. There's been times when the rest of the courthouse has closed down for whatever reason,
And they're
and they're the last ones here.
Right.
And for security reasons, I mean, he deals with felons up there and stuff, and who knows what is going on. I would definitely collaborate with him in that, because I understand that he was not very pleased with not being open on Friday, because he had already rescheduled court.
Yeah, he's got attorneys coming from out of town.
Yes. So I would highly suggest, before making the email to everybody, you know, if that's the choice y'all decide to go to, is to contact Judge Armstrong or his office and collaborate in that as well, because we don't want anybody, you know, I honestly don't want to be up here in my office alone and the doors open to the public
Right.
because you just don't know. And I don't imagine that they would want to be either.
Sure. And we've had, yes, sir.
Is there a problem with making that decision independent of the schools? Because I think their interests are a little bit different than ours,
I agree with that.
as that's been obviously discussed. But as an outlier, someone that's not in the courthouse, I think you have to recognize that when you shut this operation down, you're essentially shutting a lot of other operations
Sure.
down that aren't here. And I usually base it upon safety, whether or not my people can safely get to work. And I don't, want to compel people to drive in conditions that aren't safe.
Right.
And late starts and things like that are acceptable for those people that can get there. But I think we kind of need to make that decision ourselves, because the school's interest might not necessarily be our interest in terms of conducting county business.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And some way to notify everybody when that decision has been made.
Right.
Because I have people that work for me that don't even live in this county.
Mhm.
And so, then you run the thing of, okay, well, they've worked hours that other people have not worked, and so, you try to be equitable in terms of those type of things,
In the past, with other county judges, they've done the very same thing. They have stated, okay, guys, it looks like the roads are clear. We're gonna open at 10 a.m. If they're not, right at that point, by 10 a.m., looks like temperature's gonna be above, we're gonna do that. And all offices were open every time. And that's all I was stating. It is up to every individual elected official to do that, but they've always done it. Ever since I've been here, if the judge says, guys, we're gonna be open, be a late start, everybody shows up. I don't think it'll be any different going into the future.
I think that's right. And that's the main consideration, is the safety of the people that are coming to work.
Absolutely.
We don't want someone to get hurt coming to work. That's what it all boils down to. We have people that live all over the place, not just right here in Snyder. And so some roads are gonna be passable, some are not. If they're coming from Kent County and they got a snowstorm up there, but we didn't, or
That's right.
we got the snowstorm and they didn't, we got an ice event and they didn't, they're not gonna be able to get in. Or Harley or Ira, or, and it could be that, it's gonna be a different event every time. That's the one thing about West Texas, the weather's gonna change daily. So, the main reason I wanted to do this is that so I think we should probably follow the school for the most part, but we need to have some independent, say-so in this. And, I'm not gonna follow one part of the policy and not follow another part of the policy. That was my main goal in bringing this up here, and why I, on that day, said we were gonna follow the school, because that's what our policy says. It doesn't give any deviation from that. So that's why I'd like to look at some leeway on this. And I agree with you. I think if we say that we're gonna open offices, and I think as much as we can, I think most offices, all offices really, I think all offices will open unless there's somebody that lives so far out that they can't get in. Once again, safety is the main thing.
Well, in that situation right there, is there nobody like in Miss Collins?
You keep looking at me.
You're handy.
You're handy and you're smart. Okay, say you can't get in. Let's say one of the other ladies in there can. Can she open it, or you the one that gotta be
No.
opening?
They can open it.
My office,
But-
I live outside of Ermely, and both of my girls live here in town. So if
See,
I
that's
couldn't
what I'm
come
talking
in, they would
about.
open
It
my
can be
office.
open most of the
Yes.
time then, but
Yeah.
some,
I'm
Yeah.
closer than the two ladies that work for me, as far as being able to get to the courthouse. I'm not that far away.
well, I don't want any lady up here by herself. Matter of fact, I've stayed sometimes to make dang sure they didn't get put in that hole over by themselves. There's no reason me to go. baby's the one at home, she's over there. So things could be worked out where it could be safe, as far as it safely can be. And, I don't guess anything's just 100% safe anymore, but,
No, but, and I know from myself that if the majority of offices are open, or say Dan sends out an email and says my office is gonna be open, I'm gonna do my best to have my office open too.
Mhm.
Just because it looks better.
I think if you put in there, we follow the school, except there is a contingency plan in case of the county judge, or, and then that way you're covered either way. If the school is already closed because of flu or what holiday or whatever, then the judge can
Make another
make that
ruling.
decision then and send out the email.
What is the reason, and I'm just,
No,
I'm
it's fine.
curious, what is the reasoning of following the school? For uniformity with everybody, or what?
They get, one way that was explained to me, and I don't mind it myself, but, one person explained it to me in such a way that the superintendent is already getting all that information and getting, weather updates and making that decision anyway. So generally, since they already get that information, why?
They're already informed?
But I kind of disagree with that to an extent, in that I don't mind. I get the information as well. I get the weather service reports, and they tell me what's possibly what's gonna happen. So, I don't mind putting that information out myself, but that's the general consensus, I think, is that they already get the information, so,
Okay.
and making that decision, so.
I'm for taking it completely out. Just you and the district judge decide if we go to work. Be done. It's easy. Compared to what the school does.
Well, they have completely different, responsibilities.
They do. See, because why are you comparing entities against? You should, then you gotta compare Ira, Kermit, it's not making sense. We're our own entity, let's be our own entity.
That's what I've always thought. Scurry County stand on its own. That's just, I mean, the issue we got into last time with the district judge. Because let's say it is a little treacherous that people show up, okay? I'm gonna use either Nelda or Angela. And I don't know any other department head in this county that if one of their employees goes, I can't get there, they're not gonna say, you better get here or I'm gonna fire you. That's not what's gonna happen. Or if we're here and school is out, or school turns out early one day for whatever it's doing. I don't know a department head in here, the few people that do have children here, is not gonna say, you need to go take care of your child, please do. I do not know of any of it. So it's gotta be some give and take, but I still think Scurry County ought to stand on its own. That's just my thought, because when you thought they had other reasons besides, and I'm gonna say that the flu was the main one for Friday.
Right.
Cause they, 30 teachers out, some. And, but people, this is a very public place.
Sure.
Business takes place here every day, and it needs to be open. My thought.
You know, what's funny is that on those days, that's when more people get out.
It is.
That's when they get out and do their banking,
You're right.
pay their taxes. and
It
do
is.
things.
And, I'm sorry, that means we're here to serve the people of Scurry
Right.
County.
Now, on, y'all were out on these events because y'all had roads to blade and all of that, so, that's something else to consider as well. It's not just,
that's something right there that I didn't realize until listening to these fellow Americans right here. I didn't know you could get your hands out there on Friday.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It's 24/7 if you want to.
Yep.
And you can pay for it.
Yeah.
Some
sometimes you just gotta get them out there because there's no way that
Oh,
people
we
can.
needed to
If
go
you-
out there.
And if you have any overtime, just email our offices that, like Sean just sent us an email today for a couple of his that are gonna have overtime for being out there and stuff. So just email our
That's no
offices, so
problem.
there's gonna be the overtime.
Now, the only rub with that, my guys went out Wednesday morning at 2 a.m. Okay,
Mhm.
they run all day.
Yeah.
And due to the county being closed Thursday and Friday, and this is another one of the stupid rules you talk about, this is
I
another
run
one.
into that
Yep.
the week before.
They don't get credit for overtime because the county was closed. Because they did not work them 2 days, physically work.
Now, can you
You have to
explain that?
physically work 40 hours to
Right.
get overtime.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, good God, they was out there for,
Yes,
For-
they were.
I mean,
That's
they
in
was
federal.
dragging-
And they were. I agree with Sean.
Yeah.
From their time sheet, there was one day they worked more than 10 hours, I think.
Yeah,
you know,
But
started
at the
2
end of the
a.m.
week, it was like 39 hours.
they left and pulled the ambulances in and pulled them back out, graded every road in the world, and you're gonna
True.
argue over 2 hours.
Well, I'm going by the Department of Labor, what it says. I mean,
Yeah, it's a federal law.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not blaming you.
No.
I was just stating
But
that
that
it is a stupid law. When
it,
you've
and
got-
that's true.
When you've got people
Right.
that are willing to do the work, and then you say, nah,
Well, how do you tell them next time when it needs to be done, because that fella's a dying over yonder in that house, what do you tell them?
I don't know.
They said that it's just, that's the way
They'd
the
be
law
up-
says it.
That'd be
That's
up
that's
to,
a federal law.
that'd be up
I
to you.
don't care if it's.
There's nothing we can do about that. I mean,
Watch
that's
myself.
not something we can change in this policy.
Huh?
I agree with you, it's not right, but it's not something we can change in the policy.
Well, if
Have
you
you
would have
ever
been
seen-
open on Friday, they would have gotten their overtime.
Now they don't work it on
they
Friday.
don't
No, they don't
work
work
right.
on that.
But, and it's,
Oh, that's
the
right, they
same,
don't work on Friday.
the
That's what I
same thing
forgot.
applies if they take vacation during the week.
Yeah.
Or sick, or we have a holiday.
Mhm.
You've got to physically work 40 hours to get the overtime.
Right.
You might get the regular time.
Right. So like this
Possibly.
week is a holiday week.
Mhm.
If anybody got any overtime, if they were physically at work 40 hours.
I'd agree with everything you said. If you would answer that phone, on the other end of that mad son of a buck goes yonder, and listen, Daddy, tell you, I can't get in, can't get my wife out of this thing either. I can't get her in there to get groceries. I can't do this, I can't do that.
I've been there before.
Well,
A
I
long
know it,
time
but
ago.
it wasn't very good.
No, I
No,
didn't
ma'am,
like
but
it.
I know you know.
But if y'all want to do something different, I don't guess.
Maybe those
I
guys.
just
You
wanna
know,
be
as long
fair.
as you're paying above what the law says you're okay, is when you are
You
below
can
that.
cheat them, but you just don't wanna go over. 'Cause
Maybe
it's
those
fair.
guys need
Can't
some
cheat 'em.
hazard pay or something. when they're
Maybe
going at
so.
2 a.m.
Well, there'll
Maybe
be
make an
something worked
exception.
out because of the fact it's kinda hard to explain. When you come in there, you mean I sit out there all night, and that's the grader.
Yeah.
Doing this and
All
that,
right,
and
let's-
getting out and chaining the chain on the pull.
All right,
Well-
so let's go back to where we were.
I think it's something fixed.
I understand, and that's something we can look at if we look at the whole policy. So, but it's out of, it's out of the, where we're at, where we need to be, so, I think the whole policy needs to be looked at again, so, what do you want to do for now?
Make a motion that Scurry County stands on its own and it's.
How's the policy gonna be written for that aspect?
Well, you'll have to. I don't see how you can leave Snyder Independent School District in there when you left Hermley and our route. They
Can-
all do their own thing. They do.
Okay.
They don't call Snyder. They don't,
I
okay?
I agree.
Why do we have to?
Right. So, we'll have to rewrite that portion of the policy and we'll have to vote on it. can we, in the meantime, have a provision that says that, or do you want to just take it all out right now and write the policy right here, right now? Because we'll have to rewrite it.
Well, yeah, it'll have to be rewrote, but we need to come up with what we're going, exactly we're going to rewrite it to.
Right.
But I think Scurry County needs to stand on its own.
Mhm.
I really do.
Who's
And,
gonna make the call? Would that be the judge?
It always has.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
it has
even
been in
before
the
we-
past.
this
Does that mean
wasn't
you
in
get
the-
out and drive the roads or somebody tells you?
No,
I don't know.
yeah, no, weather service information and
Well, and
then
you also
talking
have
with the sheriff's
contact
department.
information with the fire
Fire
department.
department.
Posts and stuff like that,
DPS,
yeah.
there's
School and
lots
the
of
school
ways to
buses
find out.
probably.
Yeah.
That's great.
People with the bus.
You can even consult the independent school district,
Mhm.
all of them if you want to.
Right.
I just, we could rewrite it right now, as far as I'm concerned. We can just put in there that the judge will make the determination by the weather that we have in this county as to whether or not we will open or have a late start
Mhm.
on any bad weather day.
Yeah, because, you know,
Make it simple.
a late start is always an option.
Does that work for you?
Works for me.
Okay.
You're gonna have to say that all again.
You know,
That's your
don't
motion?
get up early then.
This doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that, like I said, that's my motion, that Scurry County stand on its own and whatever, because you cannot call Terry,
Right.
and then you can't call me because
know.
that's the walking thing
Right.
for them.
Right.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Send an email out to everybody, just like you've been doing.
Yeah,
Say, as determined by by weather conditions in Scurry County, according to whatever you used, you just use NOAA, or do you use what the school has determined, or?
Based on the report.
Sorry,
Make it broad, based on the report.
yeah, based on reports. So you could consult DPS and
We get it as well.
Schools, yeah.
National
So-
Weather Service.
based on reports that have been received, I guess you get those early, don't you?
Yeah, we get them all the time.
Two,
I
2 or
go-
3 o'clock in the morning, or,
Yeah,
so
that last weather event, I got
Based on availability.
constant changing ones. So,
the judge will email all departments to let them know if it will be a late start or if it will be a bad weather day for the county.
because we're really good at sending out group emails. There's no reason we can't do this.
Oh,
There's really not.
absolutely, it can be
There's really
done,
not.
definitely. Notify all
Like the
parties,
department head.
All
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
And then
all that.
that's what you gotta do, all that and the rest, and it goes to everybody.
that's your motion.
Mhm.
Second,
Second. Any other comments? No, two? All right, all in favor? Okay.
That took a while.
I knew it would take a minute, but I didn't think it would take quite that long.
We did get our 25-year snowstorm on.
Yes, we did. All right, I'm gonna let Amy Hodges go next. Y'all been sitting here. These guys have been doing great.
That was a lot of, like, they sat here and read the whole time.
That's good.
Yeah, I never read the
Well,
book.
it's from the library, so that makes sense.
And this is really ironic that y'all are talking about the bad weather.
Yeah?
What we are fixing to present to you with.
Oh, okay.
This is Archie and Teddy Kirk. As y'all know, I do a lot of programs at the library, but one that is near and dear to my heart is my homeschool. They come to the library. I have the same schedule as the MOPS that goes on at the church, the moms of preschoolers. That's how it all started, is I had a mom that homeschools. Well, she couldn't take her school-age kiddos with her to the MOPS because that's for preschoolers. So we came up with a deal of what it's called Homeschool Happening, and we have it. And our homeschool in Snyder is very large. In fact, on Friday, I had 38 kiddos. That's just kids,
Yeah.
not including moms. But it's the one chance that if you have school-age kids, you can actually drop them off with me. It's the one and only time that you can drop your kids off if you're going to over to MOPS or whatever. But anyway, one thing that we do is, one thing that we do that the kids absolutely love is we have indoor snowball fights at the library. And it snows at the library quite often. I'm gonna let y'all hold this and this, they have something to present to you.
Uh-oh.
We would like for the commissioners,
Okay, come back. Can y'all come turn around so everybody can see what you're doing? We see it, but
we would like to challenge the commissioners, and you might want to bring some department heads with you because of the numbers.
Yeah.
To a snowball fight at the library on February 28th at 10 a.m. And I will let you all see what our snowballs are. This is an indoor snowball.
Can I throw it at somebody?
It doesn't hurt them.
not this close.
I'm gonna do that right now.
There you go.
Those are indoor snowballs.
Okay. I like
And
those.
there will be enough there for everybody to have and we have a very large, I mean.
Yeah.
The last really big one I had, I actually was gonna post it online, but there was a certain little kiddo, and they know y'all, that the whole time all you're hearing is, die, die, die. And it was, so I was like, well, I can't post that video. Anyway, but we would like to for everybody to come, and I think it would be really fun. And do y'all have anything to say? Yeah, they're pretty serious about their snowball fights, aren't you?
Are there rules? Or is it just a free for all?
Well, we'll have rules. We'll have rules.
Either way is good with me.
Yeah.
You can throw all the snow you want to, but you gotta be quiet doing it.
Not in our
Actually,
library. Not in our
actually,
library. That's something we.
whenever I'm having homeschool,
Yeah.
we're not quiet because we have to use the big room because my story time room is way too small to have that many kiddos. But we use the big room.
Mhm.
We move all the furniture out of the room, and we've even built. We put tables up through the middle so that they would have a place to go, and they built where they could get behind boxes, and it's great fun. So
Awesome.
do you accept the
I'll
challenge?
be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Do you accept the challenge?
I sure do.
Anyway, they're really fun.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. And I'll put an email out to all the department heads and elected officials that we have been challenged, and we'll
And
go from there.
it's great fun.
See
So
if I can make it.
you did. Way to go.
Hey, I'm gonna bring up the quiet in the library. I was talking to Olivia about this last week, and she said our library is not a quiet library. It's open. It's inviting. It's if you make some noise, it's not a big deal. It's not like
It's a library that's in use.
Yes. So it's exciting. So I will be there, and I'll put out the information. And you've had a couple others that said they'll be there, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah.
And the time was at
I
February
say
20th?
10 a.m.
At 10 a.m.
They get there at 9:30, which is before the library opens, but it's because that's when MOP starts. But we'll do it whenever we open at 10.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate y'all coming in.
Appreciate it.
I shouldn't have been saying a dirty word while I go and run into board.
They were so engrossed in their books, I don't think they even heard you, so you don't have to worry.
What books are y'all reading? Just out of my own curiosity. I read all the time, so.
Cat book?
Warriors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cat book.
Nice.
And then,
Actually,
I
reading a
was
book.
sitting over here
Yeah.
reading, that's funny. He was sitting over here reading joke books.
Oh, nice.
You know what? It doesn't matter what it is. As long as you're reading, that's all that matters.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, can we go ahead and step out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all coming in and inviting us.
Did y'all want to keep this poster?
Of course.
Y'all should get a picture for the paper.
Well, that's you.
Oh, yeah. Y'all
With
come on around here,
with
guys.
the clerk, so, and challenge
I will
them.
hide behind the sign.
Here,
And I'll move.
I'm gonna let them be in the picture. I don't have to be in the picture.
Oh, you need to.
Oh,
Perfect.
Okay, that's not gonna be seen. There you go. Can you see him?
Let
I'm gonna have to get it a little bit further back.
Can you see where it says snowball wars down the bottom?
Yeah, Judge, yeah, there you go. All right. That's great. 1, 2, 3. One more, 1, 2, 3. That's good.
All right. And you got the date and time on that?
Yeah. What I do need is Shelton's name.
Yeah, we'll put that on there.
This is Archie Kerr,
Archie,
ARCHIE.
K-E-R. Okay, and how old are you? Okay. Teddy Kerr, and how old are you? 8, okay, and is that E-D-D-Y? Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
And
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
have I met you?
No, I'm Amy Hodges. I'm
Amy
the
Hodges.
children's librarian.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
y'all.
Amy.
Oh, we really got it.
Okay, so we've talked about getting grants, and how important those are, and we have a couple, I've invited, Jason and Cy to come in and talk about the grants that they have gotten recently. They both sound very interesting and very positive as to being able to help us out. So whichever one of you guys would like to go first, Jason or Cy, tell us about
I'll
the
just go
grants.
first, just briefly, kind of talk about grants, and I've been involved with grants for a number of years, and the person kind of has to, have an idea about kind of what their bailiwick is, so to speak, the things in which they're involved in, the organizations. There's a lot of unfunded mandates out there, like we know from the government, and seems like sometimes the only way to get some of those things back is by applying for the grants that they seem to like to put out there. And so in this particular instance, like I said, I've applied for grants over the course of all the years that I've been doing it. Somehow always have a specific penchant for whatever they're wanting to accomplish. In my line of work, in the adult probation end, I run several grants, probably all total, probably somewhere in the area of, I'm guessing maybe 15 to 17 budgets that I run over the course of a time. So grants are always going to have their negative parts, and the negative parts are kind of the things that they want you to accomplish. So in our instance, what the problem that we were having, and when you're a small department like we are, what I always look for is regional aspects. And so that's kind of the way that I go and where I find grants. I have a regional grant for our TAP program, which is on the adult side. But this particular new grant that I wrote was one of hearing about other departments, juvenile probation departments, that are having some of the same problems that we were. And that is that you spend a lot of time transporting juveniles across the state of Texas to different placements. And so the idea of the grant is to contract or hire out that transportation, leaving your officers there to do what their job would be instead of turning them into drivers. And so that was kind of the grant. And so I partnered with the West Texas region, which is basically from here to El Paso and all in the West Texas region, to write a grant for transportation funds to transport juveniles to residential placement. It's not detention or lockup, but to residential placement. And so I was able to get that grant, and that's a $90,000 grant that I was able to secure for those transportation services for FY20. And like I said, there's always process, there's always paperwork, there's always hoops that you got to jump through, there's always requirements that you have to have. But I just want, like I said, the judge asked me about it, so I would speak just a little bit about it, just so that y'all would know that there are some grants out there that people can apply for, and that we have applied and we're successful in doing so. But you kind of got to find that common ground and the thing that you're actually wanting to accomplish. So that's kind of what we did. So.
And he's being very humble about this, because this is not an area that is out there. That's not something that's being done out in Texas.
Well, it's never been done, and so you're kind of writing the book on it, but because, and I'm not saying that it can be done this time,
Sure.
But it's complicated. There's a lot of process with it, a lot of procedures that haven't happened. It's quite common in adult world because those are adults, but juveniles is a little bit different. So
How long have you been working on this one, Si? It's been a while.
yes, it's been probably about a year and a half leading up to this, you know. But you have to have an idea. You have to have an idea of something that when you see something that is not just as it should be, and you have to try to develop a little better mousetrap, so to speak,
Right.
and figure out, okay, is there a way that we can do this, and is there a way we can do it to the greater good of those around? And those are the grants that seem to stand the most opportunity. They like it when you regionalize. They like it when you are, trying to break new ground on something. Now, that's not your consistent day-to-day operations that we all know that you have to have, but those are things that you can find a particular niche for, I guess what I'm trying to say. So.
But you do have to transport the juveniles to the other detention facilities, because I know when Jim was here and Nikki too,
Oh yeah.
they go, and I think Anna as well, they go all over the state of Texas. I mean, there'd be times that Jim would have to go all the way to the coast to take a juvenile to a detention center, and then a week later, turn around, go back, get that juvenile, bring him back for court, and then take them back again.
Sometimes that's only 2 or 3 days later. They have
Yes,
to go back.
so, I mean, he was on the road a lot, and I'm sure Nikki and Anna are too as well. So other counties that are small that face the same thing that we face here, I think that's part of the reason why he was able to get the go-ahead for the grant.
Yeah, it's innovative. It's new. It's something that there's a need for, and it's not just our need; it's our regional need. And like you said, it's a big region. It's all of West Texas, and so
Right, and there are very few places to place children in the West Texas region.
Right.
So you're always on the road if you're placing a child somewhere or getting a child from somewhere else. So hopefully, that's the idea behind it. So appreciate it.
thank you, Si.
In that, is it possible for you to, because you said there's very few places to hold or detent these kids, is it possible that you can pick up other juveniles that are within our region that may be going to the same detention centers in other states? Or
Right. So we opened it up as a region. So virtually any county in West Texas will access this grant.
okay. And so it's just Texas that you're transporting them
Well,
in?
no, it could be other states. We
Okay.
don't place kids out of state very often, but some other departments do. So, so as an example, Winkler County, Andrews County, Val Verde, any of those counties that are in the West, that they could have a same or similar problem, like Angela said. They're 1 or 2 man departments, just like we are.
Right.
The problem is you're taking a probation officer and you're turning them into a driver.
Sure.
For 8 hours or however long it takes, 16 hours.
Sure.
So it's really not a good use of resources. And that was kind of the crux behind the grant, is we can do this a little bit better. You give us some money, we can, transport is pretty easy as long as they get there safely.
Right.
As long as, those type of things are pretty easy. You're not doing a whole lot but driving this whole period of time. So we have contacted a few providers and we've gone out for some proposals for this and hoping to enact this in relatively short fashion. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, and like you said, as contractors, it's not putting our people on the road anymore.
Right. That's great.
Any other questions for Si? Jason, what do you have going on?
Good job, Si. I'd like to commend Si and his efforts, because I personally know that kind of grant work that he's doing is way in depth. So good job, Si, for that. I'm currently working on an AFG grant for some equipment, some old IV pumps and stuff that we're working on. It's not a guaranteed grant. That one's pretty complicated. I've applied for that one 3 or 4 different times. I'm getting a little bit extra help this time because I wasn't successful in those attempts. So I'm getting a little work done on my writing capabilities and grammar work there. So hopefully we'll get that one. So that one's in the works. We're also working on our Medicaid supplemental payment program with Kevin that we do every year. Angela and I and the sheriff, he doesn't know it, but he's behind the scenes, got some staff working on it for me. Trying to get our data gathered for that. The money used to come in at about 136,000. Since then, we're down to 36,000. Medicaid's just not giving us what we used to get. The other grant that I was successful in getting was the Extraordinary Funds grant that I've gotten 2 other times. I've applied for it for 4 times in a row. So this will be my 3rd time successfully getting it. And it's out of the governor's office, the Texas Department of State Health Services, for extraordinary funds when things happen to ambulances. And it's money that's set aside each year for Texas EMS, government entities, not-for-profit, to replace ambulances. That something has happened to them or some extraordinary event has occurred to those ambulances. We were awarded $104,000, $400,000, sorry, for a Type 2 van ambulance. So this will allow us to get that along with a couple other pieces of equipment. Capital equipment is pretty expensive with the exception of $8,000, which we're moving over. I think it's in your packet today. So essentially, we're getting 3 pieces of capital equipment for about $8,000. But according to the contract, you got to spend that money and get reimbursed for it first. So that's where it's coming from. So we'll have 2 Type 2s in our fleet. One as a backup unit. Our ambulances are getting older. We're already having AC unit problems. We got one truck that's looking at engine failure. And so we need a backup truck other than an old 2001 Exporting County truck. So this will give us that extra resource that's both cost efficient to run and have a lot better fuel economy. So we're still needing to replace one more big unit, not only one unit. We'll look at that at a later date.
How long was that grant process on the one you were awarded?
I believe it's May.
When did you start applying for it? How
That
long?
grant, I started applying for 3 months ago.
3 months. Okay. Then you won't get it till May.
Well, we'll get the grant funds as soon as we spend the money and show a cancel check. And
Gotcha.
send it back. Of course, like
Okay.
all grants, there's this process.
Absolutely.
There's a list that you gotta follow to the
Right.
T, with no exceptions. Make sure all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And any grant has SINOs, and as all of you know, you've got to make sure that you write those closing arguments, you write those what you did, and how did the grant benefit you. There's always a closing summary to those. The paperwork, and I'm going to kind of echo what Cy says, the paperwork on these grants are 10 times more than they ever used to be. I mean, you just don't go apply for a grant.
Right.
I mean, you buckle down and you do your research, you pull your data, you show your charts, you explain the benefits, the cons, the pros of these grants, and then you're still not guaranteed anything.
Right.
You just hope that that's what you get. And then when you finally get the grant, you've got all the processes that you have to go to comply with the grant. And then once you get the funding, then sometimes you have, I don't know what size, but I've been a part of grants where you've got quarterly reports for the next 2 years that you've got to submit to these grant awards people that say what you've been doing on a quarterly basis for you getting these funds. And so when people go out and say, well, just go apply for a grant, you just don't go apply for a grant. It takes a lot of man hours, a lot of paperwork, and a lot of devotion and dedication in order to get this money. So it's something that any department within the county, especially government grants, federal grants, like agricultural department, agricultural grants, stuff like that, you get those awards, you did a lot of work to get them. And that should not go unnoticed. And so on top of our other responsibilities that we have to do, applying for grants is something I think that we all do above and beyond our normal activities in order just to get that grant paperwork in. So yeah, we definitely work over 40 hours a week just getting the grants.
I want to clarify something so that everybody knows. you didn't hire a grant writer
No.
on your payroll.
No,
correctly.
I have not hired a grant writer. She don't even have a secretary. I'd love to have a secretary if that's an option, but, no, I don't have a grant writer. I've never hired a grant writer. I don't have a secretary. I've never hired a secretary. Yes, I have a admin staff, but she does quality assurance and management on the patient care and report writing side, is what Cindy does, and helps with the billing component of that. And I got some part-time people here and there that help out occasionally when needed. So,
I think where that confusion came from was when we partnered with someone
For
to-
I believe it's the one that actually is helping you get the
that's the AFG.
AFG
Yeah, it
grant,
It helps with
yes.
wording,
Right.
helps with the
Or-
wording.
And it's
And that's, and I want to remind everybody that when the county signed that contract, that opens it up to all departments.
Everybody.
All included.
Mhm.
That, of course, there's a fee associated with that, whether you get the grant or whether you don't, but the fee is significantly lower than most.
Yep.
And they will help you in any aspect, whether you just want them to, you can send them your grant to proofread, like if I were to write a grant, we could have them proofread it for us and give us pointers on where, there's a small fee for that, or they, all the way to, actually write an entire grant for you. So it's a really cool, asset to have if we want, as department heads, to take advantage of that asset.
And you can get that money back because they can write their fees into that grant,
Mhm.
and that fee would go to them or back to us.
Well, it's more of a contract, but yeah,
Sure.
essentially, yeah. That way it would work.
The other thing, if we get grants, starting to get grants, hopefully more and more are applying for grants and looking for grants. But one thing to note is if you get grants in the amount of over 750,000, which is not likely, but it has been done, it puts us into a single file audit report where the outside auditors have to do more intense audit on specifically on that area, which isn't really more work for anybody else but my office, but it is a higher cost. But I mean, it's cost that you can away with getting extra money in, so it's minimal compared to the amount that we could get to help
Mhm.
offset some of these unfunded mandates and things like that.
Absolutely. And I agree, it is labor intensive to do these grants. You have to compile a lot of information. You have to show the impact, where it's gonna impact, how many people it's gonna impact, how much it's gonna cost. And it's a lengthy process. And so I commend you guys for both getting grants and anybody else who's trying to get grants. I know the library's trying to get some, you're working on some. And so,
The library does get a T-Slide grant every
Right.
year, and Trey
I've
also
already sent
gets.
Landy, one of my deputies, to school
Yeah.
for that you have to go, that's mandatory to attend those workshops before you can even apply.
absolutely.
And you
It
get
is.
the LEOS
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
grant
done that.
paperwork as well.
Yeah, so we're working on.
So, anyway,
I'm-
thank you.
I know you don't want to get a lowball grant, that federal government, like $50,000. I did a STEM grant one time and Angela got to do reports for how long? 3 years. She wasn't very happy about that, but big money is definitely worth it, doing it.
And TxDOT is about to send out in March the new,
Road.
I don't know if it's gonna be SB 1747, because they always are changing the Senate bills. But there will be a new road grant coming out, very similar to the one that we just finished, well, we're gonna finish up again. Do one more something, like having a road. I don't know the road terminology, but they're gonna do some more work over there to finish out that grant. But it's an 80-20 grant, so you spend 20% of your funds and you get 80%
Right.
from the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a
For
lot
new
of
roads.
times the 20% is ate up with manpower and equipment,
Yes.
So
because
you don't
that
have-
goes,
It's in kind.
it's in kind,
Yes.
yes.
So you don't have
And
to put
I
any
can
money in.
also, if I do the paperwork for it, so there's an administrative side of it that we get matched on for the grant as well.
Because when we did Cavender Road over, we didn't pay nothing out of pocket,
Right.
Right.
nothing, for the 20%.
I know the senior center gets grants, airport, we're working on that, taxiway grant, so we should be there this year, so.
And we'll have
Grants
a
are a good
grant
thing.
for all the other, buildings within the county for changing to LEDs.
Yes,
There should also be the health department grant should be coming open. I believe it's about that time of the year that those that
Right.
were closed by last year, when it was discussed, those should be coming up and available to start looking at as well
Right.
for this for this next year.
And I'm being told there are several people in Scurry County that actually do grants quite often and are available. And some of them say they'll even do it for free. I don't think they're gonna wanna do size for Jason for free.
They could definitely come help.
Sure. They might look it over, read through the grant.
Look it over for us.
Sure, sure.
Well, I think we're always open to somebody having a look, another eye on the narrative.
Absolutely.
Well, I think some of the key is, like I said, is knowing what that niche is.
Right.
That's what I found more than anything else is like your involvement in your associations, your involvement in the stuff so that you know when and where that's coming and who is the contact people for that, or who are the contact people for that. That's what I found seemingly is like timing is not the only thing, it's everything.
Right.
In grants sometimes is when that is coming available.
Yeah.
You know,
And the answer to that is develop our relationship with our COG. Our
Yes.
grant writers within our COG is something that I think we should improve on.
Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. Line item transfers and budget amendments. So it's just line items.
I think we only have on transfers today. There are 4 different departments. First one is the district court for $1.20. He wants to make sure he stays on his budget.
Couldn't say we could have given him 10.
The next one is Scurry County Youth Center. I wish she was here to kind of explain hers, but when she did her budget, she did not fill out her budget sheet properly. So her 2 of her lines were left blank. So there was 0. If they're left blank, it's a 0. So the 4020 line, she's putting 9906 in, and then the 4820, she's putting 7465 in out of her miscellaneous and supplies and operating supplies.
I can't see anything, I did the same thing.
We're gonna send a tutorial out this year, I think.
Should be
Harley,
different.
huh?
Should be different with our new software.
We can
Hopefully.
switch over in time. Hunley Waterworks into equipment over 5,000 at 17,550 out of repairs, cost construction of new lines and maintenance and repair. Need to pay for tank cleans and repairs.
I'll explain this one. So when we had a company come out and take a look at the tanks and what was going on, it's required to do that on occasion. Well, it turns out we had a lot of silt in the bottom of those tanks, and some of the lining was going bad, and some other things were wrong we needed to fix. The gauges were broken, lots of different things. Those tanks are clean, they've been fixed, and so that is what that's for. So, and that was done in December.
And then the final one is EMS, and this is what Jason was referring to a while ago
Mhm.
for the 8,719. This is just the difference, the remaining amounts to purchase the all the other equipment from the EEF grant. So he's going to get the Type 2 ambulance and the 2 pieces of equipment on it, and basically we're only paying
$8,000.
$8,719.
Right.
That's great.
Nice.
Judge, I make the motion with approval.
Second.
Transfers.
All in favor? Accounts payable.
Accounts payable is $865,251.80, and we are going to also add in the credit card for $6,482.32. There were some fraudulent charges that were having to be researched and like telling them we aren't paying those. So it was taking a little bit longer to get that done.
Ready to make a
If you
motion?
quit using the credit card, you would have that problem.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. We are gonna go into executive session now and talk about real property. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Sure do appreciate it.
Let's not start it yet.
Okay.